The German court case the internet tried to hide. This all centres around this man, Dr. Stefan Lanka, who's a microbiologist and biologist. So when it comes to this subject, you should pretty well know what he's talking about. Anyway, he offered a cash prize of €100,000 to anybody who could prove, emphasising the word prove, the existence of the measles virus. So the exact terms here, as a quote, the reward will be paid if a scientific publication is presented in which the existence of the measles virus is not only asserted but also proven, and in which, among other things, the diameter of the measles virus is determined. There's always going to be a greedy gold digger wanting the cash. They'll enter Dr. David Barnes. However, as admitted in court, he never even bothered to read the paper he cited as proof before submitting them. If you have a look at some search engines and put in something like Lanka wins measles court case as a search, this is the sort of thing that you get back over and over again. And it'll say things like, no, German Supreme Court didn't rule that measles doesn't exist, or German court orders measles skeptic to pay €100,000. And if we skip over to Google, we get much the same thing here, yet again saying that you had to pay the money, another one saying that you got a huge win in the court. None of these things actually happened, although the first part of it is true and then it was overturned. But let's have a look at what Wikipedia is saying, or as I would say, Liopedia. It's not Wikipedia or anything. They used to be, but they're not anymore. So their general breakdown on this whole story is that yes, at the initial district court, Lanka was told to pay the money, except he knew that the court hadn't looked at the evidence properly, and so he then said, no, this is going up, I'm going to appeal it, and this is what happened. And here in Liopedia, they at least are forced to admit that the higher court did indeed turn it over in Lanka's favour. What they do then try to get on here and say is change the terms of what Lanka was asking, because it says here information about the existence and size. No, it doesn't say, it says prove. This is the problem here. The huge difference in science is to prove something, and that means something in science, and this is what was lacking in all the papers that were cited. So the whole thing was turned over, and yes, despite what it says here about the 6 scientific publications submitted collectively demonstrate the existence and size of the virus, no, they didn't. Not even close to it. They didn't demonstrate any proof of any kind. We can come back into that later. So they failed to meet the exact contest requirements, blah blah blah. This is just them looking for an excuse for why they lost, because it's political. But at the end of the day, he lost because he couldn't prove it, and he couldn't prove it because of a lack of controlled experiments. So let's have a look at the actual court case itself and see what it said. This is the court ruling that all these search engines try to pretend didn't happen and give you the lower court ruling. This is obviously the next one up in the process, and this big huge URL, I'll put a link in it somewhere into the comments so you can find this easy, because it's otherwise quite difficult to find. But clearly this is all in German. If you understand German, great, otherwise you need to have some sort of translator. Now I have done this for myself right enough, but I'm not going to do that right now. But what is useful for the here and now is this little bit here, and I'll just copy that over, take it to your Yandex, translate German, English, and there we go. So just read this out and then we can have a listen to it. So, as a result, the appeal, as far as it is permissible, is successful in any case, because the claimant did not fulfill the criterion of the claim to prove the existence of the measles virus by a scientific publication. And that means exactly what it says. None of those papers that were cited are classed as a scientific publication. And that's why it might be quite useful to go on and have a look at what they were, or at least, and more importantly, the most important one, which really opened a can of worms. Now this is the 6 papers that were cited in claim of the money, but these 5 here didn't do any control studies, which basically disqualifies them from being science altogether. And this one up here is the granddaddy of them all, because this is what all of modern biology is based on. This is the initial foundation paper, and this is the one we're going to have a little bit of a look at right now. So here we have the website where you can go and get this paper and download it. There's the URL, and I'll put it into the comment section so you can find it for yourself. And if you click on there, bring up the paper, you can download it. Just click on download and you'll get it, and you can get a copy to keep for yourself. So if we have a look at the paper itself, I've got it in a PDF view already because I've already got that downloaded, and I can put in some searches like so that will probably do. I'll bring that up and you can see, so while there is no ground for concluding that the factors in vivo are the same as those which underlie the formation of giant cells and their nuclear disturbances in vitro. Now we'll just stop there. So all this part here is saying is that what happens in a test tube in a lab with cultivated cells, there's no reason to believe that it's anything even closely resembling to what happens inside an actual human being or an animal or plant or anywhere in nature. He's at least being honest about that, but as they always do, they carry on and pretend they didn't just say that, when in actual fact it's an important point. So now we're about to have a look at here is second agent. So we have a look, bring that one up, and we go, this is the control study we're talking about here now. So a second agent was obtained from an uninoculated culture of monkey kidney cells. The cytopathic changes it induced in the unstained preparations could not be distinguished with confidence from the viruses isolated from measles. So what he's saying here is when he done his control experiment, he got exactly the same result as he did in the main experiment. And when that happens, it basically says that you don't have anything, you're not proving anything, which maybe explains why when he goes to the very end in his conclusion, we have a look at the conclusion here at the bottom here, and you've got here, the findings just summarise support the presumption that the group of agents is composed of representatives of the viral species responsible for measles. Now of course the word presumption there I've got highlighted, so from this paper here we can actually go and have a look up to see what the word presumption means, as if we don't already know, but it's always good to check. Then you have the Cambridge Dictionary. So it says that the act of believing something is true without having any proof. Now, say that again. Presumption means the act of believing that something is true without having any proof. So this paper here, the one that opened the can of worms, we can ask ourselves, why did all the cited papers fail to meet the scientific publication standard? They all made claims which were not backed up by the experiment or experiments detailed in the methodology section. All except one did no control experiments, and none of the papers cited proved the independent variable exists in any human. In this case, the independent variable means the actual virus, which to this date has never been found in any human ever. And since none of the papers qualify as a scientific publication, they cannot prove their claim either as a singular piece of work or collectively, as Wikipedia falsely claims. So this means that since all of biology has legally been found to be based fully on presumption and not science, it follows that viruses do not exist. Thus, we do not have an immune system set up to fight non-existent viruses. Immunology is called into question as fraud too. This means that all vaccines are genocide weapons designed to kill and harm the masses for profit and nothing else. And that is why this court case has been buried in a pile of lies and propaganda.